Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad to be joining you today. I'm Margo Collins. I'm the Chief Development and Marketing Officer for Active Minds, and I'm here with Becky.
Hey, I'm Becky Fein. I'm the Director of Training and Engagement with Active Minds.
We're thrilled to be speaking with you today about mental health and the mental health of your employees, how you can help to support their mental wellness during this pandemic, and how we can continue to work to address concerns that are coming up with your employees and their families, and a lot of different tips and tools that we're going to give you today to walk away with that are going to be very actionable, we hope, in how you're interacting with your team members. Active Minds is the nation's leading nonprofit supporting and promoting mental health and mental health awareness and education for young adults. Young adults for us, though, is really a range of ages 16 to 24. And that's an age range where a lot of mental health struggles appear for the first time. So we really range from everything from high school students to college students, but really now a lot more of a focus on young professionals. And part of that is because our 16 years as an organization has produced 16 years of alumni that have really loved that mental health culture that they found on their campus and are working hard to bring that into their workplace. So there's a lot of assets around you that we want to help encourage you to take advantage of, and we'll talk with you today about how you can use those individuals as resources in your mental wellness programming. One thing that we really drive in on at Active Minds is this larger goal to change the conversation about mental health. Our objective is truly to change a culture around mental health. And through changing that and creating that community of support, we feel confident that all of us can take a role in setting a new reality around mental health, the stigma related to it, and the actionable tools that we can all take to help each other be at our very best.
Excellent. So I'm going to open us up with a bit of an overview of mental health and what we're talking about here, set the stage, set the tone a little bit about what we might be facing in the workplace. So we at Active Minds, we like to start by setting the stage that we all have mental health. And what we need to be talking about more readily is that our mental health is a lot like our physical health. Like our physical health, our mental health can be in great shape, and sometimes it can be okay, and sometimes it can be ailing. Sometimes we might have a chronic challenge around our mental health, like we might have a chronic challenge with our physical health, and sometimes it might be acute. Maybe I'm having a rough day, or something's going on, or something is happening in the world that's increasing my anxiety, or something that might be going on with me. We may even have a mental health diagnosis that we can understand and find treatment, or perhaps we suffer from or deny, or it can even be life-threatening. And it's really important that we're addressing these the same way and as readily as we would be challenges around our physical health. Um, yep. So I want to talk a little bit about what impacts our mental health as it relates to work. But first, I want to differentiate a little bit between the concept of sadness versus depression. When we're talking, we all experience sadness, and sometimes that can be conflated with depression, or perhaps it can minimize what chronic depression means for someone who lives with that and is diagnosed with that. So sadness is connected to circumstances, where depression is connected to a diagnosis, something that's chronic for people, and that we need to live to or find how to cope and treat on an ongoing basis. Similar to stress and anxiety, we all experience stress, and that can be sometimes productive, sometimes it's challenging and it's overrun, but it's when it moves into anxiety and anxiety disorders that we see something a little bit different there. So just normalizing that mental health is in our everyday. We all experience it on a spectrum, and then mental illnesses are another piece. And we know that somewhere in the vicinity of 1 in 4 of us have a diagnosable mental health challenge. Most common are depression and anxiety, and there are many others that fall into that. So let's talk a little bit about what impacts our mental wellness as it relates to our workplace. So first, circumstances, things that are happening in our lives. That can be like, my car was broken into last night. My grandmother is ill. kid kept me up all night, or extraordinary events that are happening in the world, which is of course what we're all dealing with right now. So this kind of thing can impact the way that we're showing up to our workplace at any given time. Diagnoses, these are going to be conditions that we live with. This will be physical and mental health. For folks who live with chronic physical challenges, that absolutely impacts our mental health and the way that we can show up at work and be productive and effective in our jobs. Trauma, that's going to look at that's about what has happened to us in the past or the present. This could be violence, childhood trauma, looking at our ACE scores, the adverse childhood experiences scores, divorce or loss of any kind. These can impact the way that we're showing up at work. And then we've got our environment, our workplace, and our culture. And this one is one that we all in the room can impact. We can change the way that our environment and our culture treats mental health in some way. So institutionalized oppression, discrimination or stigma, positive or negative work culture, relationships with coworkers, physical space. So some of those things are within our control, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in this webinar. So then, of course, there's a pandemic happening right now, which spans all of these things in terms of our mental wellness at work. I think right now we're experiencing our mental wellness kind of being turned on its head. Where this is unprecedented in every single way, and so we're all dealing with new types of challenges, new kind of different circumstances, um, and it falls across that. Of course, it's circumstances, and every day feels a little different. And we're really looking at one day at a time. Diagnoses. Some of us are. There's some folks who, a lot of people are getting this virus. What does that look like, and how does that impact work? Trauma. We are currently living through a global trauma, and one thing that someone said to me recently that really resonated is it's very challenging to process a trauma while we're in it. And so and so that we'll repeat this message a few times in this webinar, but it's okay, whatever you're going through right now, whatever your coworkers and employees are going through right now, makes sense and it's valid. And it's just really challenging to process everything that's happening while we're still in it. It's going to take some time to heal and get through that. And then our environment, of course, that's totally different right now than it's ever been in the past. Where we're working, who we're working with, who we're surrounded by, where we're living, everything is turned on its head by this pandemic. So I want to dive a bit into promoting supportive work environments, which I know is a particularly pressing question in this audience, and one that we've been thinking about and working on a lot recently. So one recommendation we have that we think is really important is expanding our idea of mental health. So we started this conversation by talking about how mental health exists on a spectrum, and the challenge that we've tried to overcome for a long time in the mental health sphere is that a lot of folks have mental health kind of as an other idea in their mind. It's folks who have a diagnosis, that's what mental health is, but it's not. It's everybody's got that, and when we think about it in that way, we can address all elements of it in a much more holistic, much more preventive, supportive way. So it takes many different shapes and can happen for different reasons. And so talking openly with our teams about mental health and mental wellness can make a big difference. And we're hearing this a lot from people on teams and young adults right now. It's the difference between a team that mentions mental health, even says the words mental health, and the ones that don't is very profound, and it spreads the message that we as an organization, we care about this, we care about you, and we're not afraid to talk openly about this, which is going to support your employees in and also speaking openly about what they're going through. One thing I think is really interesting, a study was done on college campuses a handful of years ago that indicated that students on campuses that are perceived as supportive of mental health were 22% more likely to seek the services if they needed it as compared to their peers who were on campuses that were not perceived as supportive of mental health. And so, like Margo said, these folks are graduating into the workforce. And we believe while that was a study of college campuses, it's very applicable in the workplace and just makes sense, right? When the workplace is perceived as supportive of mental health, folks are going to be more likely to seek the support that they need, which is going to lead to increased productivity and increased presence at work and all of those really important longevity and loyalty at work. So that's a really relevant piece. Yep. Oh, and I made it. We had a conversation recently with recent alumni who cited that they actually very specifically are looking for companies that demonstrate support of mental health prior to applying for jobs. So we had this team of people. They said, actually, we were these 22-year-old recent grads who said, before I apply for a job, I call up their employees and I find out what are they doing around, what is their mental health culture, what are they, what's it like there, how are they, what's the language that they use, what are their policies and general practices. So I thought that was really interesting and indicative of the generation of the new workforce that that we have in front of us right now. So another piece is defining health and sick time really broadly. And so this I think is a simple, profound change that we all can be making. We can easily demonstrate our support for mental wellness by expanding our sick time policy to include mental health. And so what that can look like, I know in most companies it's called sick time, but what if we called it personal health time? The difference there is really interesting and potentially subtle. When we say sick time, I think there's a specific definition that we attach to that associated with our physical health, and so it can be harder to justify taking a day because I'm feeling unwell. I'm feeling anxious today, or I'm just a little overwhelmed, and I need a mental health day. I need a breather. I remember when I was in high school, my mom. This was prior to any mental health activism or really advocacy or awareness in my world. She used to say that we were allowed to take a mental health day every so often from school. And I look back on that now. I said that was really progressive of her. That was before the language was really happening in our culture. But it stuck with me so importantly because we took it seriously. We weren't going to take advantage of it. We really only used it when we needed it. And I think that's the same with employees. You use it when you really need it. So I think that's an interesting one. Also in defining health and sick time broadly, consider offering flexibility around therapy appointments and physical movement, especially now. If we can offer some flexibility and say, hey, we know it's important to get out and go for a walk. If you want to schedule that into your calendar that you're going to take 20 minutes to go for a walk, do that. Do what you need to do to be okay right now. And what I love about these ideas is there are shifts in scheduling that can cost no money. They cost no money for us to do as companies and us to support as managers, but they can make such a difference for employees and their mental health. Next, I want to talk about positive language and messaging and behavior. So what messages are we sending to our employees in the way that in the way that we're behaving and in the way that we talk about mental health? And this is really important. So a few examples, especially right now, we all have a little bit different work schedules. Sometimes the best time, if I've got a kid, sometimes late night is the best time that I can plow through my email or something like that. Making sure that we communicate with our employees about that, because I know, sometimes if I'm getting emails from my boss at 10 o'clock at night, in my head, I might be, oh, should I be online? Should I be responding right now? Is that, they're online. Should I be? So if I'm as a boss, I can say, hey, listen, my kid goes to bed at this time and this is just the best time for me to be emailing. Don't worry about that. You should, you don't need to be plugged in beyond the hours that are right for you. And other things that you can use in those moments is, I know for Gmail and other email platforms have schedule sends that you can use. You can be doing your emailing at midnight and schedule it to not go out until 9 a.m. the next morning, or something like that. So getting creative and communicative about how what messages our behavior as managers is sending to the people that we oversee. And then thinking about our time off and sick, personal health time and paid time off, especially right now, for folks who are new to working remotely. It can be challenging to does work life look like, and that on and off can be, it's a tricky thing to get into. And so being, as people who manage teams, talking about this a lot, and being cognizant of it, and encouraging our employees to take the time that they need when they need it, and communicate that in a way that's appropriate based on our relationship there. I saw an article recently, a man who worked at his job for 50 years, and he never took a day off. This was kind of the top line of this article. Never took a day off in 50 years. And I read the article, and I found myself wondering, am am I less of a good employee because I take every hour that I'm given? Like, I will not let a PTO hour fall, not roll over or something like that. I said, does that make me a lesser employee? I said, no, no, of course not. And in fact, that's the best for my mental health. And I'm going to be a much more productive, much more efficient employee and team member if I do, to take that time. And it's not to say that this individual wasn't worth celebrating for his 50 years. Of course he is, but we need to be paying attention to whether, are we celebrating when people are working weekends and working really long hours and not taking the time off? Or are we celebrating when people do take the time that they need? And so paying attention to how we message that as a company. So just a note about our language. We should just really be cautious about the language that we're using that may inadvertently stigmatize mental health. I could do kind of a whole other a whole other webinar based solely on language, but just a really quick one. We talk about people first language. So it's going to be someone with bipolar, someone with a disability. So person first language can make a big difference. Someone who lives with depression rather than a depressed person or a disabled person. So that's a way that we talk about the person being first, and not using mental health as an adjective. Oh, the weather's so bipolar today. You know, it just is jumping all over the place. It's or I'm so OCD about my house being clean. So, well, not only is that not accurate to what those experiences are, but it really diminishes the experience of people who do live with OCD and live with bipolar, and it can further silence those experiences for folks. So paying attention to the words that we're using is really important in setting a culture around mental health, and people notice it. I think people notice when we start shifting the way that we talk about that. So lastly, I want to talk about proactively promoting wellness practices and resources. And so this is important. Perhaps your company already has some really great resources. It's critical that your employees know that. I've talked to so many people who say that who's the employees don't will say, oh, we don't really have that much that's great out there. But when we talk to the employers, they're saying, oh, we've got all these amazing benefits and these amazing opportunities. It's okay, so there's a disconnect there. We need to make sure that our employees know about the resources that are available and are supported and encouraged to use those resources. I read an article recently that talked about how this company had this great gym on site. It was just right upstairs, and he took a tour and showed him this gym and said, hey, we how this is what a great benefit we've got. And then when the employees are asked if they used it, they said, oh, no, I never have time for that. So again, like a disconnect between this great offering and how it's actually being used. So creating and promoting those resources and opportunities, encouraging folks to use them as is appropriate and as is built into your company can be really critical. So we're seeing, I want to just touch on the difference right now with a lot of people working from home. This presents a whole separate kind of layer to this conversation. Finding balance and supporting a culture that discusses and encourages that balance. So what does that look like? We can't go to gyms anymore. Getting outside and going for a walk. We're not seeing each other in person as much or at all right now. So finding different creative ways to connect with our teams and our coworkers. We talked to a team last week, and and one employee mentioned how they have enacted a policy of random acts of reaching out, which really struck me. He said it mattered. She was. Somebody would just pop into their Slack or their or whatever their chat forum was and say, "Hey, just a quick flyby wellness check-in. How's it going?" That says it's just and she described how that was such a simple thing to do, and then I went and did that for a whole bunch of other people. I went and reached out to other people because it meant so much to me and it was so easy, so it had this ripple effect. And I've actually heard that from a few different people, that quick text or quick message really resonates with the rest of their days. And we're also hearing the importance of check-ins at the top of meetings, perhaps. How's everybody doing beyond our work right now? What's going on in our lives, and paying attention to what's happening outside of work with our employees. These can be some of the we're hearing that checking in with our teams is one of the most powerful things that we can be doing right now. When we can't see body language, we can't really see general demeanor. So that's really important.
Becky, before we move on, I have just a couple things I wanted to endorse here. We were on a call actually just earlier this week with a group of managed employees with a political group here in DC, and uh, they were really echoing a lot of the messages that Becky just pointed out, particularly modeling the behavior, that was something that was really important for managers to be doing for young and newer employees or people that are kind of uncertain what to be doing at this time frame. If they're being told schedule time to go for a walk or schedule time to take a break and to just do what you have to do to keep yourself focused throughout the day, they weren't seeing that being modeled by their managers, and so it just really wasn't an effective statement to be making. So really wanted to endorse that. And then the other one that I thought was really interesting was a statement we heard just this morning. There was a comment made that there was, and we'll talk a little bit more about the stigma and the self stigma that comes into play. But there's an individual who was saying, I don't want my manager, I don't want my team, I don't want my HR department, I don't want anyone to think that this struggling individual is who I am. I am concerned that after this is done, people will remember that I had to reach out and seek help, that I had to take advantage of the tools that were being used or being offered by my workplace. So, how can we, as individuals who want to endorse a positive mental health culture, encourage that usage of the EAP programs or the breaks, the lunchtime discussions, or whatever else it is that we're putting forward? If we as managers aren't going and showing up at those events, we're not modeling the behavior that says it's okay to do this. We're not owning that, yes, I'm reaching out and seeking therapy right now. I think another thing that's really a barrier that we need to be aware of is that, particularly in markets like DC, and there are a lot of other ones like this around the country, there's a really big barrier to entry for professional care. So, trying to, if, even as an experienced individual trying to seek out a new therapist, I'm going to probably have to call and call and call for a long time in order to find somebody who is open and able to talk with me. And if I can't do that, then what are the other resources that I can take advantage of? And what can we do within our teams to create a positive environment where I can own my struggle? I can tell you what's going on before it becomes a crisis. I can tell you that I just need to take a break or I need to schedule more time or have an honest discussion with my manager about that because I may not know how to find a therapist, and I may really feel that barrier to judgment if I am actually seeking that care.
So, so important. I appreciate that point, particularly about modeling. We have heard that a lot. Being open about our own experiences um, as people who supervise a team can be so pivotal in the way that that team treats, talks about mental health. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about promoting connection and mental wellness among our teams, particularly in this time of COVID-19. Um, so one thing we want to start, we mentioned this at the top, is acknowledging that the challenges are very real. The grief, the injustices, the unfairness, the disappointment, all of that is really, really real. And we're happen right now. We're reading a lot about anticipatory grief. So this is stuff that, there's so much about this pandemic that's unknown, and there's so, we don't know how long it's going to last. We don't know who it's going to impact. So our culture is experiencing a kind of a residual pandemic of anticipatory grief, which is leading to anxiety. What if something happens, or what if I don't get to do that thing that I've been planning for a long time? These are just such an unprecedented times, and it's critical that we're being so gentle with ourselves and with the people around us, more so than always, and more so than ever right now. You might be experiencing sadness. We might experience confusion, discomfort, a lot of different things. That's okay, and that's valid. And we might also be finding some comfort. We might be finding safety. We might, in this room, we might have privileges that people aren't, that a lot of the world doesn't have right now. Maybe we're in safe homes, or we have consistent jobs, which is of course a big challenge for people. And so it's okay to experience gratitude around that as well. We're hearing that some folks are getting more time with their families in a way that they may not have been able to. So gratitude and appreciation is also okay. We're hearing a lot about guilt around experiencing any kind of comfort or gratitude or joy right now. And it says, well, we have to let ourselves experience that joy too. That's okay. And us experiencing joy doesn't make someone else's experience worse. And our experience of grief and challenge doesn't isn't lessened by someone experiencing something worse. So it's just the comparison. We really, really need to do our best to fight that off, and to support each other in whatever this looks like for each of us. Um, and and then of course, finding promoting connection. We've talked about this a little bit. Fresh air and physical movement, however and wherever is feasible. We know this looks different right now. For some folks, it's possible to go outside and walk around a neighborhood, and some that's not. So whatever that looks like for each of us and each of our employees, the more we can be encouraging this, the better off we're all going to be. Um, and then connecting online and using the tools that we have, using the video and the chat and the communication tools. And I'll say I was presenting on a webinar a week ago or so, and someone asked, they said, well, how do we both encourage reduced screen time and encourage connection at the same time? Because in the mental health sphere, we talk a lot about how screen time can be a detriment to mental health, which is absolutely true. And in that moment, I said, well, and screen time is connection right now in a lot of ways. We really need to lean into intentional screen time, intentional, using the video and the chat functions. We're hearing, and we're actually seeing that in a recent survey that Active Minds did among young adults in mental health, is that connection time is one of the most important things we can be doing right now. Spending time with each other is one of the best ways we can be supporting mental health right now. And so whatever that looks like, that we can do that in a safe, physically distanced way. You'll notice I said physically distanced instead of socially distanced, which is kind of the go-to term right now. That's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention term. We need to be socially distanced. However, in the mental health sphere, we're talking about how we need to be physically distanced. Indeed, we need to be socially more connected. We need and just keeping that safe space between us. Just recognizing that okay is relative these days. We might not be at our top performing. We might not be, I've seen memes online like this is a great time to learn new skills, learn a new language, take a get another certificate or something like that. It says, well, if you can, great. If you feel inspired, absolutely. But if you just need to take care of yourself, doing whatever you're doing right now is the best that you can be doing, and being very gentle and acknowledging and validating of that. I wanted to pass it over to Margo, who's been doing who manages a team of people and has some clever, productive ideas around how that's been going. So, yeah, Margo.
Yeah, so the this Active Minds team overall is about 50% remote and 50% in the office here in DC. My team happens to all be here in our DC office. So when this pandemic hit, we all went remote for the first time, and we've really put an effort as an organization to encourage in-office work rather than remote work where possible. For my team in particular, this was a really big jolt for a lot of them to go to basically working out of their bedrooms for about half of my team. About half of it has enough space where they can set up a separate office. I'm lucky enough to be one of those that has a separate space, and I've left my husband way downstairs, 2 floors down. So we get 8 hours a day apart from each other, and that's been really nice and helpful. But I have team members that are literally using their kitchen counter, using their couch, using their bed, and thankfully many of them setting up desk spaces where they're able to get some work done. One thing that has been really helpful for us, and I've heard this echoed from other people managers, has been a morning drive, like check-in. It's just, we call it the coffee chat. It's been scheduled since early March. Every single day at 9 a.m. we come in together and we spend 15 minutes on a video chat, drinking our coffee and talking about whatever trashy TV we watched last night. We don't get deep into anything. We try not to get too drawn into the work conversation yet, because when I walk in the morning, I don't want to walk into my employees' offices and ask them, have they started that project at 9 a.m.? I want to ask them, how was their evening? What did they do last night? What are you getting into these days? And so we're really committed to that. It's also been really helpful for me and my confidence in my team and their quality of performance, because I know that they're up by 9 a.m. and getting to work, and I feel very confident that the effort is being put into place. I'm seeing them visually. It gives me an opportunity to see how they're interacting with each other, who isn't speaking up, who is kind of interacting in a different way than they did the week before or while we were all in the office. And it gives me a trigger point to notice, is somebody struggling that I can reach out to and maybe spend a little bit more time in their one-on-one, focusing on how they're doing, and leave more space for that rant and rave. And that's another thing that we've really committed to doing, is learning the rhythm of our team. So we do try to start all of our small group meetings, especially with peer groups, with a rant and rave. And that can be literally about anything. It can be about how frustrating my colleague is dealing with a very, very full house with relatives that are in town from New York. And so not only dealing with her own children and her husband and the dog, and now extra visitors who have been here for a month and a half beyond when they were supposed to leave. It's an opportunity for us just to lament about whatever's going on. It's also a chance for us to pause and be grateful, because we know gratitude mindsets are really helpful for our mental wellness. And so it gives us a chance to really think about what's going well and how are we actually responding in a successful way to this pandemic, and the special needs that it's bringing. Some other things that we found really helpful, we've continued, and actually we will long continue this after this pandemic, but all group and team meetings are starting with something more like a wins and notable completions. And I purposefully include notable completions because that can be something as small as, we got that letter out the mail. We got we got that email done and drafted so that it can be delivered next week. It's all those little things that can feel like very big projects in a moment like this, especially if you're struggling with your mental wellness. But because I can take a moment and celebrate something that every single person on my team was able to accomplish in the last week, it continues to help them see that they are productive and that they are contributing to the environment that we're in. And then the last thing that I really wanted to endorse is something that I've been again hearing from across the board, which is, we all know that Mr. Rogers' tip, in a moment of crisis, look for the helpers. Well, in our crisis, we're actually recruiting the helpers. And so we are looking for those manager levels, people who are at all different levels of the organization who can show up in a moment where we're not there. So if we have a staff group that gets together for a lunch, or they're having another conversation and the conversation starts deviating into the really difficult news of what COVID-19 has created, or something scary, or what is it going to look like after this, or are there jobs, or whatever the question might be, if it starts getting into that situation, we have those helpers that are ready to say, okay, it's okay to be concerned about that. And also, here's some things for us to consider. And how do we want to be able to take this and keep moving on with our day and be okay? Or none of that. Maybe they're just letting me know as a manager afterwards to say, hey, we had a tough conversation during lunch. Your team might be feeling a little bit difficult, or a little having a few more difficulties right now moving past it, because we all kind of left down after that conversation. Then I know that I can go to them and either give them a pep talk, or just know that things are going to take a little bit longer for the afternoon. So those are my tips and tools that have been really helpful. And hopefully you guys can share either into the chat box or in the Q&A toward the end about some of the other things that have been going really well for you. And I do actually want to jump into this one as well, and say that there are 4 truths that have really been helpful for us. The truths that really center you in what you're thinking about with mental health. The first is that, especially for younger generations, stigma related to mental health has dropped significantly. And that stigma is for me to you. So that's me having a concern about whether you have a mental health struggle or not. Meanwhile, self stigma remains a serious behavior. And what that means is what we were talking about before. I don't want you to know that I am dealing with a mental health struggle. I don't want you to think less of me, or I assume that you will think less of me because I need to seek out these resources and what I need to take care of my mental wellness. So those seem to be at odds with each other, but they're both realities, and they continue to be realities not only for young adults, but really I think across the board. The second thing is that most people tell us that they do want to help. They really want to be there for someone that they know who is struggling. But at the same time, they're really having a little bit of trouble knowing exactly what to say and how to help. They don't have the words to show up in that particular moment. And that has been a barrier for them to actually show up for each other and offer that help. That's a big part of what we're going to talk about from here forward in the conversation. And I want to pass it back to Becky to go through one of our favorite tips of how to have a conversation with somebody who may be having just an everyday struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings us to VAR, which is validate, appreciate, refer. And so validate, appreciate, refer is a tool that was brought to us by young adults a couple of years ago, and they created it because they were out. They were saying we're a mental health advocacy group, and people come to us sometimes. They say like, oh, I'm just feeling really overwhelmed, or I'm stressed, and they weren't sure what to say. They kind of, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to refer them to the wrong place. And this is so important in telling. We all have barriers in these conversations. And if we had a lot more time, I'd be curious to hear from folks what barriers might show up in your world. What do you think might get in the way of having these conversations with our teams, with our employees? And I'll say a lot of some of the common ones that we hear about is, what if I step out of line? What if they get mad at me? Or what if it makes it worse? What if my saying something actually escalates the situation to next level? And we're just here to really say that that's not, the studies do not bear that out. The studies show that when we talk about this openly and we talk about this in that kind of productive way, the stigma is released, the pressure valve is unhatched there, and we can be more together as a team. So this easy, memorable acronym, we're going to run through it really quick to show you what that might look like. So as people who manage teams, you might have someone on your team who maybe their emails are delayed, or maybe they're feeling stressed, and you can kind of see, like Margo said, you maybe getting a tinge that something's a little off about this person from a check-in. So starting with validating feelings and experiences, and this can look different depending on your relationship with that employee, with that person. This is absolutely applicable in our personal lives, outside of our professional lives. So validating feelings. That sounds difficult. That makes sense. I'm sorry you're going through that right now. What you're going through is real and it's valid. That sounds really overwhelming. It's okay to be confused or frustrated or disappointed right now. So just starting with a sense of validation makes such a difference, rather than jumping into solutions or jumping into what to do next, because that can sometimes inadvertently invalidate what someone's going through. Maybe they've already done the thinking around it, or maybe they have a lot of guilt about this email they haven't sent back, or something like that. So starting with just like, wow, that sounds difficult, and then we can progress towards solution-oriented discussions after that. Appreciating courage, and what this looks like is, it can be hard to find the words with everything going on right now. There's just a lot happening. I'm glad you told me, so that now I know where you're at, and we can work together on this. I'm here for you, and by you telling me, you're letting me be there for you in a way that will hopefully lead to productivity all around. Thanks for saying. So it helps to know what you're going through right now. I appreciate that you shared. Staying open about our feelings is what's going to help us get through this. So this is really relevant right now. So as teammates or team managers, these are really, really valuable words that are going to support your employees in feeling supported, and that you're present for them, and that you are concerned about what their worlds look like right now. In addition to productivity and efficiency at work, which is all super entwined. And then lastly, refer to skills and support. So at Active Minds, we're unique with adding in this skills component. We believe really strongly that for some folks, professional support is what they're going to need. Where they're going to need to talk to a therapist, absolutely. And for a lot of people, healthy coping techniques and self-care is gonna do the trick. So the key with the R of VAR is asking them what this looks like for them. So what do you do for self-care? If you're overwhelmed, like that task that you're working on right now, it's just really, kind of boiling over right now, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. Okay, so what can help us? What helps you feel a little bit less overwhelmed right now? Is there something I can do? Would a walk feel okay? Does fresh air sound okay? Does it make sense to shut it down today and restart again tomorrow? Whatever that looks like within the parameters of what's appropriate there. How does your balance between work and home feel right now? Maybe we can be open about these conversations. Are you feeling like you're able to separate out home? If I'm like Margo said, if I'm working from my bed, then maybe I'm struggling to sleep right now, even because I'm spending 20 of my 24 hours a day in bed, and I've got my bed associated to work. And so what can we do to support these balances? Do you know about the crisis text line or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline? And that would be if we're concerned that there's a, a bigger challenge happening, if we think there might be a crisis. And under these are 24/7 resources that are always available, and you can support somebody in getting the suicide prevention or crisis support that they need. I think it's important to note that for the crisis text line and National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, if you are concerned about someone who might be considering suicide, these resources are available to you as well. You can text the crisis text line or call the suicide prevention lifeline and say, hey, I'm worried about this person that I know, and I'm not really sure what to do. They're going to help you talk through how or what to do in those situations and how to address that with them so that they get the help that they need before it gets dangerous. Um, how does some fresh air sound? And so you'll find that these are all question oriented, because what works for me is going to be different than what works for you, and it can be overwhelming if I say, well, just go for a walk. That's what you need right now. I said, well, that might be what I need, but that might be too much for the person I'm talking to. That might not be what they need. So most importantly, what would be helpful to you in this moment? What can we do to help get you through this moment? So we're really gonna, and what I love about VAR is that these can be really these don't have to be long conversations. These can be short check-ins. They can look however is appropriate for you, but integrating this is such a powerful way to demonstrate to the people around you that you care about what they're going through, you're listening, and that you're there for and always. A couple things to avoid when we're talking and when we're having these conversations. Um, Trying to fix or the issue or rush to a solution before we validated this experience. So that can, and I say that to as a reminder to myself as much as to anyone else in the room. I'm a very solution oriented person, and so when I see somebody struggling, I jump right to, okay, what can we do to fix that? How can we let me take care of this for you? Which for some folks might be helpful, but there are some folks in my world who've told me that that's really not helpful for them, and in fact it might get them further into the issue. So starting with the validation is so critical, and then getting there with them, saying, I've got a couple ideas, are you ready to hear those? Would that be helpful to you right now? So pausing before we rush to solutions for folks in the room who are also solution oriented, and want to try and fix things for people. Being critical or judgmental. So this is really important. So we got to seek first to understand. It can be easy for folks who haven't experienced depression before, or who aren't struggling right now to feel judgmental of, like, well, just send those emails, like, just clear out your inbox. This isn't that hard. Just make that happen. And you notice with all of those, the first thing I said is, just do this thing, just do this. And it's like, well, that language is invalidating in itself. So it's really important that we're not, well, at least this isn't happening, or at least, so we need to seek first to understand what's going on with them, because clearly, if it were easy for them to do this thing, then it would be done, or it would be happening. So seek first to understand, and then move into to solutions, if that's the right move. And using our own experiences to relate before hearing them out. That's not to say that your experiences aren't also valid and aren't also worth time. They are, but we got to first hear them out, because otherwise we might risk running into like a one-upping situation. Oh, you think you're stressed out? Let me tell you about my day. Like, well, okay, so now we've sort of silenced, and we've moved forward away from what this person was going through. And lastly, we kind of touched on this, is suggesting that it's not that bad, that something that experience is not that bad because other people are starving, or other people are, it's other things. Well, okay, yep, that's true. That does sound harder. And it's like that instead of allowing us to relieve stress and support each other, that's going to compare and minimize and invalidate, which is what we want to avoid here. So Margo's got some examples around this.
Yeah, and I love VAR. I can't tell you guys how helpful having those three simple letters in my mind has changed my relationship with my team. It changed my relationship with my sister. It's changed how I interact with people, because I'm like Becky, I'm a solution person. I want to fix you right away. and to pause that inclination and to just focus in on validating the experience that this person that I care about is going through has changed the way that they trust me to have that conversation with them as well. And I want to also share an experience that one of our board members had. She works with one of the large consulting firms here in the DC area, and we were talking about VAR. This was back in the summer, long before the pandemic hit, and she had an employee call her on their way to work, and they said, "Hey, I'm actually running a little bit late this morning. I had a panic attack this morning, but I'm on my way in, and I'll be there. I'll be fine." And she was floored. She didn't know quite how to respond. It was the first time an employee had so openly owned their mental health and confronted it with her and talked with her about it. But because she had VAR in her toolkit, she first says, "Wow, I'm so sorry you're going through that. That's a difficult thing to be dealing with this morning. I understand panic attacks, and I'm very familiar with them, so I understand how difficult it is of what you're going through. Why don't you let me know when you get to work? Let's set a game plan for today. Are you sure you want to come in? And if you do want to come in, let's touch base throughout the day and make sure you're still doing okay." And so she validated that it was going on. She was sorry that it was happening. She appreciated being told what had happened that morning. And then she set a game plan for how they could work together throughout the day, and really used herself as a referral tool there for that employee. And it was just really key for her to have those kind of quick things to turn to help with.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree. I'm one of VAR's number one fans. When we started talking about this a couple years ago, it totally changed the way that I communicate with everyone in my life. Like, oh, just VAR, got it. Validate, start there. I second that. Um, so we want to just really acknowledge that our experience in this, we've touched on this already. Our experiences are so unique, and they're universal. We've never, as a human population, experienced something of this caliber, that is so universal. In 10 years, there is not a person alive right now who's not going to have some kind of COVID-19 story in their back pocket, and so we're all in it together. And this is something we're hearing that's really, really important for young adults to hear, more than anything right now. This was one of the number one messages that they were really craving: is we're in this together. We don't know how long it's going to take, but we will get through it, and we're in it together. So that, I think, is one that we really want to land on with you all. We also want to take the opportunity to share some upcoming opportunities with Active Minds, and a great campaign that we've got going for May.
Yeah, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and for the month, knowing that a lot of people are struggling right now, and some people are feeling elevated experiences with their mental health of existing struggles that they deal with. Some people are experiencing their first mental health struggles. We just want to make sure that as a culture, we're all here for each other, and we're letting each other know that we are open to having conversations about our struggles. So we're really advocating for folks anywhere and anywhere to post this icon, the Here For You icon. All you have to do is go to activeminds.org/here for you, and you can download. There's like 6 different options of what you can download. There's coloring pages that you can do with your kids if you want to keep them busy for a little while. There's toolkits for how you can put things up onto social, and in different ways to pay it forward. We really want to encourage you as well to take that message of "I'm here for you" and share it directly with somebody throughout the month of May. Just find one person in your world that might want to hear the message. "Hey, I don't know if you're struggling or not, but I just want you to know that if you are, I'm here for you. And if that ever happens, it doesn't matter if it's now or later. I want you to know that I'm somebody that you can turn to talk to." Um, and generally, if you are looking for more tips and tools about how you can help others, or continue to work on your own mental wellness, we encourage you to join our world at activeminds.org, and join that conversation about mental health and learn other pieces like that. And I think we'll try to share a little time for Q&A, but if we flip to the next one, there's a couple of URLs there where you can get more resources from Active Minds. ActiveMinds.org/COVID has actually a lot of remote feasible tools that you can do to promote mental wellness. There's a lot of free access to different meditation and mindfulness and other kinds of apps like that that you can find at activeminds.org/COVID, and then more tips and tools in when you go to /@work.
Yeah. We have a couple minutes for questions, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much. A lot of great tips, and I will just say I am also a huge fan of VAR. It's something that has helped me even with my relationship with my husband at times when I'm struggling with mental wellness, especially right now. He's the main person that I have to talk to in person here. So having him practice those tips when he is also solution-based is super helpful, and just gives both of us more practice in using that strategy. A couple questions. One is, how would you suggest we handle living with family members, living with mental illness while working at home and not necessarily having the space that you need for yourself?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think living situations is such a challenging, gentle conversation right now because we are living in tight quarters and we don't get to get out the way that we maybe have before. So, I mean, I think my main suggestion there, and Margo, curious to hear yours, is communication. You know, communication as best as possible, as in whatever way is safe. You know, we just actually released a blog post about teletherapy and how can you navigate finding private, quiet space in your home, which for folks. Um, but honoring, you know, expressing the things that we need, asking for that validation and asking for that space when we need it, and hopefully having reciprocal conversations around that. Margaret, you have other thoughts?
Well, I'll echo that. And it has been interesting, especially for folks that have multiple partners or multiple roommates where they are all seeking telehealth right now. And they've had to find that rhythm of going for walks while the other person stays home and has the conversation in the bathroom with the therapist. Whatever it is that you have to do, communicate that. But there's also another great webinar that we have on that activeminds.org/COVID page that really advocates around the setting barriers, the expectation and the barriers that we need to own within these small spaces. What can I do? Like when and how can I help you? When and how do you need to communicate to me that you need help? And really have those open dialogues about what you can do, what you're going to struggle with, and what you need to set barriers around. What is a no-go? Um, and I really highly advocate for that. That's with our Dr. Chris, who's one of our Active Mind speakers, and Dr. Jen Hartstein, who is a therapist out of New York City as well.
Absolutely. And one other question, I know we only have a couple minutes left here, but do you have recommendations of how to support an employee who has lost a loved one due to COVID during this time, or maybe they have a loved one or know somebody who's close to them who has been diagnosed with COVID and going through that scenario?
I'll share just quickly, and then I'll have Becky share some more of the kind of other side of this. But I had an employee, and we've actually had two employees that have lost people in their worlds in the last month. And um, one of the things that we really focused in on was how can I check in on you, and how can I communicate that I want to check in on you without burdening you in that moment. Um, so one of the things that I did is I just did a daily check-in by text message and just let them know that I was thinking about them. And and I had pre-communicated there was no obligation to respond to that. But if he wanted to reach out and if he wanted to have a conversation, I was there and able to do it. And that he could let me know when and how he wanted to go back to work and when he was going to feel ready for that. Becky, do you want to talk a little bit more about grief and some of the conversations around grief?
I think, yeah, I think this is one of those spaces that's a kind of a big, this is another level of the global trauma that we're dealing with in terms of how we can grieve the loss of people right now in a time when we can't get together to celebrate life. We can't maybe spend last moments with people we care about. And so I just really echo what Margo said, reaching out and supporting and validating in whatever way is right for them, and finding out what is right for them is I think the best thing we can do, and offering flexibility if and as you can as a company, to allow people to grieve and take the time that they need, specifically as it relates to COVID-19, can be really valuable.
Yeah, I know there's probably no one right answer for either one of those questions. It's so dependent on the person and on the scenario and situation. So I thank you both for your advice and for sharing your own experiences as you're navigating through this pandemic right now. And in general, thank you both for everything that you shared.